In this video, we will be discussing analyzing analogies and allusions. We'll be working on this lesson about analyzing analogies and allusions. You're going to be analyzing how allusions and analogies affect meaning and tone in a text. How can you determine people's attitudes when talking to them? Well, you can look for certain things. You can look for how they say things, you can look at their word choice and the words that they choose to use, and you can also look at their facial and vocal expressions. A person's attitude on this subject is often reflected in the tone of his or her voice, which can reveal their inner feelings. Remember that an author's attitude is reflected in the tone of their writing. They choose specific words and phrases to help the reader understand how they feel about a topic. One way authors do this is through the use of analogies and allusion. Let's go over what an analogy is. An analogy is a comparison. For example, if I were to say that the topic was as broad and deep as an ocean, that means that the topic at hand that we're discussing has a vast amount of information that goes into it. So it's as broad and deep as the ocean, because I know that there's a lot of water in the ocean. Now let's go over what an allusion is. An allusion is a reference to another person, place, thing, or text. So if I were to say that he lied or he looked like Pinocchio when he was lying, well, that's an allusion because obviously that means that his nose, quote unquote, was growing because he was lying. Analogies and allusions are tools a writer can use to express his or her feelings or to help readers visualize a scene. So let's look at the text. It says, what tone or attitude toward the subject does the description below express? Does the writer seem amused, angry about, or full of admiration for the potter's abilities? So let's look at the text. It says, Julian leans over his potter's wheel, the clay spinning before him like a tiny dancer. He cups it gently with his hands, and the dancer stretches towards the ceiling, becoming a slender column. Now he places delicate fingers on the rim, and the top widens gracefully as it continues its elegant ballet. Now, the writer purposely chose words to help you visualize the changing clay and recognize the beauty of sculpting. So it said it spun before him like a tiny dancer. And it said that that dancer stretched toward the ceiling, becoming a slender column. And it widens gracefully, which the gracefully can be used to describe a dancer, and then in its elegant ballet. So we're seeing a lot of comparisons. So this is definitely a good example of an analogy. So this extended comparison between two unlike things is called an analogy. Writers use both analogies and allusions, which are references to well-known stories, artworks, people, and so on, to enrich the meaning and shape of the tone of their writing. So let's continue by looking at the bottom. It says, study the cartoon below. How do the allusions affect its tone and meaning? So in the cartoon it says, this will be my masterpiece, my Mona Lisa. And the person who's sitting says, I look more like the bride of Frankenstein. So we're supposed to look at the two allusions in the cartoon. So if you look, we see two allusions immediately. In this one it says Mona Lisa, which is in reference to a very popular painting. And in this one it says Bride of Frankenstein, which is in reference to a very popular work of writing. So the allusion is the Mona Lisa. This is a reference to Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting, the Mona Lisa. It shows that the artist thinks she has created a great portrait of a beautiful woman. In the allusion Bride of Frankenstein, the reference is to the Bride of Frankenstein, which is a fictional wife of Frankenstein's monster, which shows that the model thinks the portrait is horrible. The contrast between the allusion creates a humorous tone. The artist believes she has painted a fantastic portrait, but the model thinks she looks horrible. Writers choose words carefully to convey specific ideas and emotions. By recognizing and understanding analogies and allusions, you can better determine an author's intended tone and meaning. So let's go to the next page. In the next page, it has an artist at work. So let's go ahead and read. Kang hesitates for a minute as if preparing himself and then slowly places the tip of his paintbrush on a piece of handmade paperclip to an easel. Starting in the upper left corner, the brush swoops like a swallow, flitting first down and to the right, and then turning swiftly to glide left along the bottom of the paper. Streaks of grass green paint remain wherever the brush has touched the paper. King lifts the brush, and his assistant takes it from him and hands him another, this one loaded with a chocolate brown color. Again, the swallow swoops, and this time from right side of the paper, down and to the left, then up again, forming a graceful curve. The visitors make sounds of appreciation as an image of a tree begins to take shape. The best works of Picasso and Pollock hardly compare, they murmur. Can you feel the tree branches bending in the breeze? So before we continue, notice that Picasso and Pollock have a footnote, and these were two famous 20th century painters. So it says, explore how to answer this question. How does the use of analogy and allusion impact the meaning and tone of the story? It says the author develops an analogy in paragraphs 1 and 2 that gives you a vivid description of the artist's brushstrokes. She also alludes to two important painters in paragraph 2, which were Picasso and Pollock. Now, in order to do this and answer this question, I'll look for descriptive words and phrases to see if I can determine the analogy and allusions the author includes. In the first paragraph, the author describes how the paintbrush swoops like a swallow, right here. Swoops like a swallow. It flits and then it glides, which is down here at the end. Based on these descriptions, the author is comparing the paintbrush and the artist's paint style to a bird flying. The comparison helps me visualize how the artist paints and suggests that the author admires the artist and his style. Now let's look at the second paragraph. In the second paragraph, the visitors compare the artist's painting style to Picasso and Pollock. I know that these are both men who were very famous and respected painters. Picasso in the early 20th century and Pollock in the mid 20th century. So this reference must be important. So now let's look at the chart. So the chart at the bottom has the word choice. So first we have to look at our analogy. Well, the analogy was the comparison, and we said that the comparison was the paintbrush being like a swallow. So the words that we would put here are brush swoops like a swallow, flitting, gliding. The impact of the meaning is that it's creating an image of the brush moving like a bird in flight, quickly and gracefully. So now we need to put those together to figure out the impact of the tone. The tone that it sets is one of awe and grace. Now let's go to the allusion. The allusion that we said was that the best works of Picasso and Pollock hardly compare at the end, the last sentence. The impact of the meaning is that the artist paints as well as the 20th century painters. And the impact on the tone is that it's setting in a tone of admiration and respect. Now let's move on to the next page. Let's continue reading. King gestures as his assistant gives him a brush dripping with grass green paint again. The swallow is now a tiger as the brush fiercely swipes at the bottom of the paper in short, quick strokes. The artist gestures for blue and the tiger swipes once more. King stands back and surveys his creation for a minute before giving the paintbrush to his assistant, indicating that the painting is finished. Truly amazing, the visitors exclaim, clapping enthusiastically. The assistant removes the paper from the easel and announces, "See me to purchase this amazing elephant painting, for Kang is one of the painting elephants in Thailand, astonishing his visitors every day at the conservation center where he lives." So, let's go ahead and let's look at this. Now, it says for us to underline two instances where the author uses the new analogy. So we're looking for a new comparison. Well, I know that the old one was a swallow. So here it says the swallow is now a tiger. So I can see that the analogy is now comparing the paintbrush to a tiger as the brush fiercely swipes at the bottom of the paper. And then it goes on and it mentions the tiger swipes once again. So I can now see that the paintbrush has transformed into a tiger. So let's go ahead and look at the question. It says, what is the purpose of the author's use of the analogy on this page? A says, it describes a change in the artist's blending of colors and shapes. Well, changing from a swallow to a tiger doesn't talk about the blending of colors or shapes. So A is not the correct answer. B says it describes a change in the artist's perspective as he paints. Well, not really. It doesn't mention anything about the author's perspective. So B is not the correct answer. C says it describes a change to a lighter, more delicate brushstroke. Well, going from a graceful swallow to a strong tiger is not really a change to a lighter, more delicate brushstroke. So C is not the correct answer. D says it describes a change to a stronger, more powerful painting style. Well, definitely a tiger is going to be considered strong and powerful. So D would be the correct answer. Okay, now that you have gone through lesson 16, you can go ahead and read Any Fool Can Get Into an Ocean. You can answer the 3 questions, and then you can do the cold read for A Trip Over the Rainbow.